welcome to the Switch Hustle with Mags Bowler Murphy and Boffin Consultancy. Today we are here to chew the fat on all things hospitality and tourism and the challenges around it, but also the positive pieces. We're going to have an open discussion with three super professionals and powerhouses in their own right. I want to introduce you very quickly to both of them, or to three of them, sorry. We have Lucy Dowling from the Pembroke Hotel. Lucy is the operations manager and business development and HR, so she wears a lot of hats. Welcome, Lucy. We've Robert Miller, who is the group manager for the Talbot Group in Wexford. Robert started his journey from the ground up, like myself. And we have Cyril Mackery, who is the managing editor of the Hotel and Restaurant Times. Good afternoon, folks. How are you all doing?
Good afternoon.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you for all being here. This is going to be a fun conversation, I would imagine. I wanted to have this conversation, I think, because it's important that we look at this specific sector. It's one of the key sectors for me and my business as tourism consultants and business advisors. But it's also one of the backbone sectors of this country's economy. It is one of the 2 to 3 industries that always gets us out of a recession. It is one of the industries that, from a personal perspective, asks a hell of a lot of you in terms of sweat and tears. We've all been there. But it's also one of the most enjoyable sectors to work in if you love dealing with people, if you're passionate about that piece and presenting yourself in the best form that you can. Before we start, I think it's safe to say, and I want to state this, that Ireland is recognised for its excellence in terms of its provision of service and in terms of its overall hospitality and tourism offering the world over. And it's important that we maintain that identity out there and that we don't lose sight of it. However, the pandemic has dealt changes to every sector that serves people, I think, and every sector that is front-facing, and otherwise it has just, unsurmountable challenges in some respects. So we're going to look at some of those today. And I wanted to talk a bit. I'll start with you, Robert. What do you find one of the biggest challenges at the minute in your own properties and in the sector as a whole?
Look, thanks for having me on, Mags. I think it's a great opportunity just to discuss what the hospitality and the tourism industry in Ireland has been facing these past 18, 19 months. Look at pre-pandemic, we had a tourism industry that employed 260,000 people and was contributing nearly 9 billion euros to gross domestic product. And then all of a sudden, within a couple of weeks, we were effectively shut, or majorities were shut. So over the last 12 to 18 months, we've all tried to get back, to, I suppose, some kind of normality where we opened our doors, but then unfortunately we had to close them again. And then we had a big stint then back in January of this year where we were closed effectively for 5 months. So we're only really back open since the 2nd of June. And look, since the 2nd of June, we have experienced in the Southeast in particular, positivity in terms of the staycation in Ireland. But I suppose what the last 18 months has done as well, it has brought us challenges because effectively we took people out of the workforce for over a year and we expected them to come back and I suppose be the same people that they were 12 months prior. And again, like anyone, when you're going in an industry like this where you are operating 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and you're always on the beat, you're always on the go, and then to stop overnight and effectively stop for a year and to try to get back into the swing of things again, that kind of, brought us challenges. Obviously, COVID brought anxiety, which touched on people's mental health that we had to deal with a lot over the last number of months for reopening. But we have, I suppose, embraced the reopening with an opportunity to kind of develop our team, kind of learn the importance of the appropriate guidance and procedure that needs to be followed to get us through and keep us all safe during these challenging times. But to highlight particular challenges, I suppose, like we all have heard over the national media and locally, staffing is an issue. We are finding it difficult, I suppose, to attract people into the industry because we just don't want people just coming into the industry just for the sake of it. We want people to come into the industry that care about hospitality, that care about tourism, that care about the customer. Because at the end of the day, the customer is everything to us in hospitality and tourism. We need the customer to make sure that we're sustainable. So it's about making sure that we can attract the right people and grow and develop the current set of people that we have in our workforce. So hopefully that is in a nutshell. But I'll discuss more anyway as we go along in this podcast.
Yeah, there you've highlighted some points from my perspective, Robert, that I think we've all been aware of, and you referenced anxiety there, and I'm going to be honest with you, there was one day in particular here that we were getting hammered with crisis calls, and I was sitting in an office for 6 to 8 hours with a husband working from home, a daughter that had to be homeschooled, and I came out of the office one day and I just cried because, and it wasn't from anything that I was sad about, I was just utterly exhausted and stretched to the pin of my collar. And I think, you know, a lot of business owners have had to deal with that, and the recruitment issue in hospitality and across a number of sectors, to be fair, that's where service is a key requisite, has been a challenge. And I suppose we referenced this before we came on about, you know, what it has helped businesses to do, and Cyril, you rightly mentioned it, was identify the really good people, and Lucy and Robert, you mentioned it as well, the really good people in your business. It's shone a light on them, you know, from that, and we'll discuss that more in a moment. Lucy, how are you? What have your challenges been? How are you guys doing up in Kilkenny?
Kilkenny's hopping. I think, Megs, you said, I don't know how many days I'm kind of going, oh God, can I get through this? But you know what? There is such a positivity with that energy in Kilkenny. Kilkenny always is a place that, God, I'm not going to say the sun shines, touch wood, because it's amazing. But there is a sense in our tourism sector that we protect each other, you know, like, and it's lovely from a business perspective that we do share that business around Kilkenny. We look after each other. We don't poach our staff, not that much. But it's really, really positive. We have the exact same challenges as everybody else, and I think Robert said it is an industry thing, but I think the biggest issue is not just recruitment, it's the protection of the people that we have and making sure that we're not pushing them to an extreme. We've all been through that, those years where we pushed too far, and that was kind of the way we did it back then, but that's completely gone. And I'm very aware that we don't bring that back in, that we keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing, because you can only keep that going for a certain amount of time. And to keep that fabulous positive energy and everything, we need to make sure that our people are okay, customers included. Customers, suppliers. And I think the
customer can see that too, Lucy. Absolutely. I know, you know, there's a saying, you can take the person out of the industry, you can't take the industry out of the person. It drives my husband wrong at times. But I will notice, even in stores, and we have a lot of retail outlets, retail clients as well as hospitality, where they're facing similar challenges. And you know, restaurants, if you sit in a restaurant, you know if somebody's not happy in their job. You know, and that reflects on the cash basically at the end of the day, and the business growth. Cyril, how are you keeping?
I'm good, Max. Thanks. Yeah.
What have you seen?
Surviving.
You're surviving. You're living the life.
Yeah.
What have you seen, Cyril? What do you see, and what's your take on the ground of the challenges that are out there at the moment?
I suppose
the positive stuff too.
On the positive, yeah. But put in context, the last 18 months probably have been the most frightening of a lot of people's lives. There's no two ways about it. And personally, I remember, not unlike yourself, sitting one day and having this awful sense that my business was ending. You know, 22 years of work was just going down the swan. Where's I going to go? What's going to happen? You know. But over the last few months, you know, I've re-engaged with the industry and I've been talking to people, and there is something about hospitality. It is so chameleon-like. It never, like, it will always rise to every challenge. It doesn't matter what it is. We all remember when IMF came into the country. What was the savior for the country was tourism, and it was identified by the IMF at the time. That was a key component to getting our economy back to recovery. Right, the industry. As I said to you, the most fantastic people work in it. They're all committed to it. They love it and they work hard at it, right? And they invest time and effort into it. So I see the problem is that attracting young people into it. we alluded to earlier on about the different generation, the generational thing, right? When our age group, or my age group particularly, you got a job and that's it, and you didn't question, you accepted things and you took the bad behaviors and all the rest of it, and that had to stop it in a way. Like there were bullies too in work, so you have to have a good working relationship. But in regard to the industry, I think that, and I said to it earlier on, there's a big disconnect between our educators and the industry. There's a massive disconnect with our government and the industry, because when you look at how tourism is treated, it's like the poor relation. We don't have a minister for tourism. We have a minister that has tourism, media, arts, culture. It's like it's like the booby prize in the sort of the cabinet. Who's going to get tourism? Who wants it? And unless the industry as well works as a cohesive, not have all these disparate groups who are looking for the 5 minutes of fame, and work as a collective, I think this is going to continue. It's never going to stop. Because if you look at the IFA, they speak with one voice. Tourism, you get 20 voices, all singing different things. The restaurants won't be happy with the hotel the way they operate during COVID. The hotels won't be happy with the way the pubs operate. The nightclubs won't be happy with the way, there's all these disparate groups. So there's no cohesiveness. And I think that needs to be looked at if the industry wants to really be taken seriously. That's just my view.
Yeah. And I think it's really important, like Cyril, that goes back to something I was saying earlier, that we need to keep this sector as a professional, recognized sector, because it is. And I suppose when I was training years ago, God, when I think about it now, it makes me feel old. But when I was training in the UK, I remember people on my course, it was a multicultural setup. We had Greeks and Italians, and they all wanted to come to Ireland on their placement. And I couldn't understand this. And I was saying, better weather in your country than mine. But they all wanted to come over for the level of skill and expertise and experience they were going to get. I only really realized that when I started to travel myself. And then when we lived in Sweden a couple of years ago for a year, and I was working out there, running the business between here and there. And I remember this day when the penny really dropped for me. We went into a very standard bar and a restaurant, because out there's no polish put to that offering. It's limited. And I remember speaking to my husband, and I said to him, that girl, like, she's after throwing the cutlery at us, she was thrown together herself. There was no engagement. But then when I looked at her manager, I knew where this was coming from. And I suppose you have to lead from the top down and the front out, as I always say. And you lead by example. And like, I thought to myself, that's when the penny dropped for me, because I turned around and I said, now I know why people wanted to come to Ireland to train, because we do it right, and we do it with passion, and we do it incredibly genuinely as well. And we work bloody hard. And, there's no ministerial body, there's no ministerial department for tourism in Sweden. I worked with a couple of tourism entities out there, and there's no, they're not recognized as a professional sector. It's kind of the lowest of the low. It's your low job just to get you through the lean times, or, when a student. And, I think we need to be careful, because we are in danger of that happening in this country if we are not careful. So it does need, as you said earlier, Robert, it does need strong people coming together as a whole sector. And you related to it there, Cyril, just to up the ante and to
Can I just add to that, Max? And I'm sorry for interrupting, and you hit the nail on the head. We're just talking about your experiences abroad, and like, organizations create the working environment that sculpts employees' attitudes, right? And in turn, that's their beliefs, and that then forms the organizational culture. We have, I suppose, in our DNA, that 1,000 welcomes Céad Míle Fáilte as a hospitality industry, that we are welcoming. We are recognized across the world for being a welcoming nation. And like, even most recently, when I had a couple of people from mainland Europe staying, like the difference in hospitality here in Ireland versus, other parts of the European Union or across the Atlantic, it is recognized. So we have, I suppose, already a culture built into the hospitality DNA in Ireland that, we can be very proud of. And the last 18 months have brought their challenges and have probably kind of tried to dent that, DNA, or try to, somewhat sabotage it in a way. But I do believe the core is still very strong. And I do believe that, with the right people at the helm of all individual organizations, individually, you'll be doing your own thing. But as a collective, we can all, come together and, form a greater perception about the industry. Because yes, the industry has a stigma. The industry has a stigma that sometimes it's not the best career choice to take up when you're leaving school and college. And unfortunately, I'll be very honest with you. I had a lady who started with us in June, after June, when we reopened, and she told me that she wanted to do hospitality when she went to college in September. And she got her leaving cert results last week or the week before, and I went over and I congratulated her, and I asked her, did she get what she wanted? And she said she did, but then she said, and no fault of mine, and I questioned it since, said, I don't know if hospitality is my thing now. And again, it kind of shook me to the core a bit, like what did we do wrong? What did the hospitality industry do to kind of, take a shining bright star away from the industry? But look, I'm hopeful that we can, again, through our own organizational mindset and through her experience in hospitality, hopefully as a part-time job over the next 4 years, which is in university, she'll change her mindset and she'll stick with the hospitality industry. Because that's what I did. I stuck with the hospitality industry. I didn't study it in college. I went to different pattern college, but I just said, I love the industry, and I love the people that I deal with. I love the different challenges that I meet every single week and every single day in the industry. I love the progression, because again, hospitality, there is progression. And I love the energy that it brings. Even though if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, it's still energy, and I love what it offers.
Sorry, can I just come in there, Robert? One thing you talked about, that young girl and her change of direction. What I find fascinating, and interesting, is that if you take two people that leave college or school at the same time, they get the leaving cert, and Jimmy goes to become, an hotelier or get into hospitality, and John goes to become a doctor, right? John, as the doctor, is going to be working 80 hours a week, in sort of unbelievable conditions, but he'd be revered because he's, it's a doctor. And the guy in hospitality is almost, well, he couldn't get anything else, so we went to hospitality. And again, that's something else we have to look at. That it's not our educational system is all now driven towards degrees. It's what you get when you're leaving, instead of looking at what skill sets have we got, what are these people best for, and using that. Not everybody is suited to hospitality. You have to have a certain charisma for it, and it's like just a certain flair for it. You have to be a people person. And again, I hark back to our educators. They need to change the way of doing things. And there's some programs on TV that can be detrimental to hospitality. The likes of these chefs that go off and they're shouting and warning people, and but if you're a parent, but if you're a parent watching that, you're going to have an impression of that's the industry, and it's not. And that's only to make somebody, some particular chef wealthy and get an audience for himself. Where you have people like the likes of Nev Maguire and people like that are passionate about their business and really will help people, like Kevin Dundon, people like that. And they're the people we should be looking up to and using as ambassadors for our industry. That's just
Cyril, I really, really agree with you. I think that, and I would always say, right, I go into schools a couple of times a year, and I do a bit of voluntary work for a group called the Inspiring the Future. And I always say I wasn't the most academically bright at school, and I have 2 brothers who were, and people used to say, "How are you their sister?" But I know, Lucy, but I love my brothers dearly, right? I love them dearly, and they're bright chaps. But in school, it's pushed and driven towards points. And I think that's massively doing a disservice to our generations, because there's more than one option available to them. Like, I took the scenic route, getting to the hotel sector, but I absolutely loved it. And when I left it operationally, I learned more from that sector than I've learned in any job I've ever had. And that is a fact. It gave me backbone. I was a very shy, retiring girl, really shy when I went into it. But you
don't
found
believe
your
that, Mike.
backbone. Well, you see, if you knew me, honestly, I was. And I think you have a choice. You have an opportunity, and it gives you that opportunity. And I had the right people around me. I had an amazing GM at the time and a really good hotelier who was so encouraging and saw the potential. And without that, I was at a stage where I didn't know what I wanted to do, Cyril, and I that helped me make the choice. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And then I came out of it operationally, but I've got dragged back into it in every role after that, right? And I love it. But I do agree with you. Like, and it's not just, my own daughter said to me there recently, I have to laugh at her. One day she wants to work in hotels. The next day she wants to have her own business. I suppose she didn't lick it off the road. And I always say to her, she said to me the other day, she asked me the question, Mammy, do you have to go to college? What if I'm not? What if college isn't for me, Mammy? And I said, Pet, as long as you're happy and healthy, there will be something there for you. You will get your education. It might not be in college, and to bring back the apprenticeship piece as well, because there's a lot of that. They're very similar. Apprenticeships in the construction sector, which is another sector we deal with, they're badly needed at the moment. But I think a similar style needs to be promoted for the hospitality sector as well. And it's how the media communicate about the sector too, how the perception is managed. We all eat with our eyes. And if we see an angry chef, Cyril, and you're right, you're dead right in that piece. If you see an angry chef and you've got a daughter or a son who suddenly announces, I want to go into the hospitality sector, you're going to see one side of it. So I think there's an onus on a collective group within the tourism sector to, maybe lobby for that stuff and kind of drive it on a positive path forward for the country. But I would be very passionate about the education piece and encouraging people that there is more than one route to success.
And there's so many different areas as well that you can, I suppose, approach in hospitality. It's not just, a barman or a chef. You're looking at human resources, you're looking at revenue management, you're looking at sales and marketing. You're looking at all different areas, all different professions that are, again, held in very high regard in the professional industry. And just as well, hotels. The hotels are hearts of communities. When you think about it, they're major employers. They contribute to a lot of social groups. They're seen as a place where people can gather and celebrate for their special occasions in and around the community. Hotels are genuinely the heart of many a community. And again, it's just, I suppose, highlighting, the assets or the importance of hotels within, each individual people's communities and so on. So, there's ways about it and there's ways to promote it. And just again, talking about the development, and I don't know, Margaret, if you want me to discuss it, but we're doing something at the moment called the Talbot Collection Chef Development Program.
Yes, please talk about that.
And again, we noticed that there was, a severe shortage of chefs in the industry, and we had, again, an appetite from the customer, they required a particular service, and we had to make sure that we could, keep up with that demand and sustain our future. And we all are in the same industry where, they are like hen's teeth at the moment. And we said, look, we need to do something about this, because if we don't, we're just going to end up with egg in our face come 2022 and beyond. So we introduced the Talbot Collection Chef Development Program, where we went out and we're looking for aspiring cooks or people who are considering hospitality as a career. And if they were interested, they would send in their application, where they would undertake an interview. And if successful, we would then put them on a 12-week training program to develop, I suppose, their culinary skills. And in turn, they would get a level 2 City and Guilds diploma, which is the equivalent of a level 5 QQI award here in Ireland. And again, it would be an all expenses paid program. So starting next Monday, we're really looking forward to that. It will be based in a professional cooking kitchen in Bray. They will be staying in accommodation in Dublin to Talbot Stillorgan for 12 weeks, where they'll be kind of put up, breakfast, lunch and dinner, and provided with transport to and from the cooking school each day. And then at the end of the 12 weeks, they'll be coming back to their respective kitchens within the collection. And starting off the career as a chef, we would like to think. So again, if this is successful, which we believe it will be, we will continue it on next year, because again, we're just trying to think of, other ways of attracting people into the industry, because, there is a saying, like there is a thing where people go, if they're not there, sure, look, if they're not there, what are you going to do? There's always ways and means about getting out of crisis. So it's just about collectively coming together, coming up with ideas, using our minds, using our experiences, and just hopefully then, getting, the things in place for the future and sustainability.
Yeah, I really think that's a good initiative. I really, really do think it's a great initiative. Another business that I know very well, and Cyril, you know them as well, MasterChef's Hospitality, Pat O'Sullivan, they've introduced a really, really good initiative where they're supplying kitchens now with a kit that will reduce the requirement for chefs in their kitchen physically, right? And allow a little bit more of work-life balance as well, but allow their customers to continue to provide the service that they want to provide to people. Lucy, in your property, how important do you see programs like that and training and learning, I guess, and what type of support do you provide to people consistently on the ground?
So we have, obviously, frameworks in place. We're a relatively small property. So our passion is to protect the people that we have. And one of our core values is growth and learning always. And it's probably one of our biggest strengths. We've kept the same people, myself included, for 10 years or so. And kind of that's how young the property is.
Longer, Lucy.
So it's very important that we make that commitment to them. And one thing that's quite interesting recently is people who are applying for significant roles from outside the industry. And I suppose our ability to be able to take people on for the right attitudes, and we say it a lot in the industry, but we don't always commit to it, that we take people for the right attitude and then we'll train them. We can do that here. And I think that's the benefit of it. And we're very lucky that we will use everything that's available to us. Skillnets have been brilliant. We've engaged with them for the level 5 and level 6 supervisor and managers courses. Now, there are challenges with that as well, especially when we're understaffed, that we have our key people offsite learning. So that poses itself an issue. So Robert, I love that initiative that you've done, that it kind of doesn't take away from the people that you have on the floor, but allows you to kind of gain that the extra, I suppose, attitudes and bring in the skills, which is absolutely brilliant. And being able to put them up is massive as well. Like there are little things like that we have as well. We're very lucky to have a house to be able to put up some staff to make it more available to them, because Kilkenny has a really big issue with housing at the moment and trying to find rent that matches what they're earning. That's a big challenge in Kilkenny. We have, I suppose, look, we're asking so much of our people at the moment as well, that we need to be able to commit to the promises that we've made, and that growth element, whether it's in-house, whether it's external. We have systems where we would talk about what ways they want to develop both professionally and personally as well. Our job chats are more frequent than normal. We would have kind of on the floor job chats regularly. We would have a sit down cup of coffee every 3 months. And one of the first questions is, have we developed you, and how do you want to develop, either professionally or personally? And that is a promise that we have to make our staff, to be able to keep them, and that they are happy, that they are completely fulfilled in their outside life, so that they are fulfilled in work as well. And I suppose, like, the benefits go along with that as well, for us and for them, that as they're learning, they're bringing whatever skills they're learning, they're bringing their idea generation, because it's massive for our industry at the moment. We need to get those ideas in so that we can change. And I think that's one of our biggest things at the moment, is we need to get rid of this attitude that this is the way we do things. We don't. you know, we have to adapt. We have to take from different industries.
Absolutely.
We have to take from those young ages who are seeing things done differently outside of our own industry and capture those ideas as much as possible.
So
I also
many-
That's massively important.
Yeah. Just one thing, Robert. Like, I mean, I think we promoted that program at your work. We promoted online and that for you, and we continue to do so. And I think that those initiatives are what's needed. And you know, like Lucy said, we need to go back to the basics of, you know, the apprenticeships and bringing people on again. Like, I mean, it's, you know, the industry, you know, it just cannot, you know, conjure up a chef out of nowhere. It has to. It's a skill. And the same with any skill within the industry. It has to be, and I think apprenticeships, we have to go back to, well, it has to go back to that route. It's the only way to survive and bring people along with it, you know. But unfortunately, the likes of what you're doing, Robert, will not get the exposure on normal media. You know, the bucket of 5-cent coins will, you know, that's probably all of it, you know. But I think that's a fantastic initiative, and I know like Master Chefs are doing it, and other people are doing it, something along that line. So, in fairness to Rob, you probably kickstart a lot of people to say, right, we need to become more creative, and you know, and try and sort the problem for ourselves, as against looking on the government to solve it. We need to sort it for ourselves, and that's what has to happen, you know. That's come from within.
I think there's strength in numbers too, Cyril. You know, when people come together, there's strength in numbers, and you have an opportunity to actually develop multiple ideas, and out of that there might be 3 or 4, you know, ones that are viable and strong and worthy of further investigation. One of the things that I suppose I've noticed, and I'm sure you guys have noticed as well, is, you know, there's a lot of ways that the pandemic has affected everybody, and we spoke about that earlier on. But, you know, one of the key things for me is that I've noticed, and I've heard people say it to me, when I say to people, we've worked remotely for 8 years, they look at me and go, huh? But, you know, now we're all familiar with Zoom. We're all familiar with, most of us, with StreamYard that I'm using here, Microsoft Teams. How have you used, Cyril, this is for you as well, from a restaurant and hotel point of view, like, what have you seen, Cyril? Let's start with you in terms of technology and innovative pieces being applied to support the sector.
Right. I suppose, I look at my own sense of what we've done. I mean, prior to this, we printed up, you know, a hard publication, and when COVID hit, everything stopped, and we had to reassess and say, right, where do we go from here? And thankfully, again, you know, hands off the government, there was a school available where we could get some funding towards the website development. We developed our website, and we've more or less gone online. And I don't know if you go back to the print again. That's been honest with you, because we're getting an average 5,000 to 6,000 hits per month on our website. We're getting great traction with it, and everybody has moved off from the normal way of getting things to a new format, like you talked about, like Zoom, like, you know, using the internet, using online as the resources. And a lot of hotels are doing that now too. Like, you know, hotels now are using different apps not there for staff, for, you know, for setting up the rotas and things like that there, you know, for connecting with staff, WhatsApp groups, all that sort of stuff, to make that connection. And I think technology has a tremendous role to play here for the sector, if it's utilized right. I mean, you know, ordering, like you see now, you've all these different ordering platforms that people can use for takeaways and that there. Like, again, hotels and restaurants became very innovative, that they couldn't have customers in, so they had to create this ordering system. So they had to use technology for that. So a lot of people have migrated to new forms of technology, and that can be utilized and harnessed for the business going forward, in my opinion. But there again, probably Lucy and Robert are the best people to answer that question.
Lucy, from your perspective, how have you found, I suppose, the new technology pieces that you might have introduced, and what and how have you introduced into your different arms of the business?
So we were quite strong with technology initially anyway, and I think the lockdowns forced us to actually look at each piece, and we've reduced many different pieces down to 1 or 2, which is great. I suppose from a HR perspective, I absolutely love the technology piece, like why we were not interviewing people on Zoom for the first interview. I can't see myself ever going back to, because we do 2 interviews for everything. I will interview first, and then they will go to meet their manager, Paul, or the head of department. Like it's a no-brainer. It's having that first initial conversation, making sure that they're the right fit for the role, making sure the person is the right fit for, they want to work with us, all that kind of stuff. And then if they are the right fit and they really want to explore it a little bit more, they go on further. So from a HR perspective, that in itself is amazing. But from a communication point of view, like Robert will see it as well, it's impossible to get a team of managers in together. Someone's on their day off, someone is, even for a town hall meeting, like to be able to have Zoom, right? Someone's not starting until 3 o'clock, they can hop in at 1 o'clock for 10 minutes, you know, and to record that, and anything that needs to be shared, it's now put up correctly. The communication is absolutely improved so much. One of the biggest things actually I noticed was I managed the Medispa in the hotel, and it was a form of communication and protection of our customers when we were closed. Never in a million years would we have ever imagined our therapists not being hands-on and being able to deliver a treatment over a piece of technology like Zoom, and we had to adapt. So how we kept in communication was skin consultations online, and the skin consultations weren't about the skin consultations for us, it was about checking in with those customers that loved the therapists and actually just seeing, are you okay? Is there something you need from us? What were we doing? Anyway, we were at home, we were trying to improve the business in certain ways, but we were there to communicate, and we really checked in. And that was the kind of brief that the therapists were: contact your clients and make sure that they're okay. We would have our age group would be kind of the let's say the 35s plus, and up into older age groups. And it's the older age group that we were most concerned about, because coming into the spa was, and getting, like, let's say even beauty treatments, massages, facials, were there kind of pieces in kind of a 2-week period to a month period, and missing out on that was massive. So that in itself, I think, was gold for us from a technology point of view, and you would have never imagined it before COVID.
Yeah,
you know?
no. And how about you, Robert?
Yeah, kind of something similar, Lucy. We did a bit of yoga with Amy in the centre, and we did a bit of spinning with Daniel and stuff. And again, we never would have envisaged it. 12 months prior that, one of the leisure centre attendants or the fitness instructors would be doing a class online. But look, it certainly helped, and it kept the engagement between the customer and the company itself. In general, again, we were kind of proactive in terms of technology from a purchasing perspective. From a kind of a time point perspective with regard to the rostering and stuff like that. We kind of are always looking at other ways of how we can take the paper and the manual labor out of it. But at the same time, I do love that personal approach when it comes to employee and people interaction. I would try to, and I do it every week, is just have a meeting with all my managers, in a group setting with social distancing, of course, or on a one-on-one basis, because it's just, you're able to feel the energy in the room, and you're able to, you can take people's body language in a way that you wouldn't really necessarily get over Zoom. So again, Zoom is brilliant. I had a couple there who are living over in London there at the weekend, and they're getting married in one of the properties, Newby House, that we have down here, and I was able to have that personal interaction with them without having them in the room physically, and it's just something that we are embracing. But I do love and me, Mags, I'm I like being in close proximity, and just having that chit chat, and just
and I think, Robert, it's funny. I was asked there a number of months ago. Somebody asked me, Mags, are you going to go 100% online? And I said, no, never. And we're online a long time, and it was that time in Sweden that necessitated that move to online. We've always done 40% of our business using online platforms, and we wouldn't be able to work with clients outside of Ireland or at different locations only for that facility. But I, like Robert, think the people piece is so important. I like to have that interaction with people. Cyril, I'd say you're the same. That we can get a little bit zoomed out of it, and we have to remember that we are in the Irish hospitality sector. And that the two things I missed, actually, and you might find this really, really strange, but the two things I missed and I found the hardest to adapt to when COVID hit was a handshake or a hug.
Yeah.
Still,
Yeah.
I think still the handshake.
The
Yeah,
handshake
yeah,
I still find difficult because it's built into me,
yeah.
and
There's
I
almost
just
a
feel-
respect element to it as
Yes,
well. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It's almost alien. It's actually counter hospitality, isn't it? It's all the things we don't, that is alien to us. The most important thing you do is put out your hand to welcome somebody, and now you
Yeah.
can't. You put the fist,
The elbow, yeah.
Yeah.
Or even when we were doing training on customer service, like teaching people, especially younger people, that you can't always be focusing on the screen element of your life, that you're dealing with people now when you're at work, and you can still smile with your eyes, even though it's challenging with the masks. You can still ask the questions that are caring and considerate, that make the customer realize that, yes, these people value us and they're considering us through our experience. And I think that's hugely important. But it has asked a lot of people on the ground to change, some of them, habits of a lifetime, and how they do things. And I think some people have really struggled with that, and have really. I was speaking to a restaurant and cafe owner yesterday. One of their key staff, she's just refusing to change, because we've been working with them for the last 7 months to change their systems on the floor, to change how they're delivering the service. So they're taking the sit down element of their property out of the equation, and it's turning into a full deli aspect with limited standing and sitting space. And it'll work really well. But there was one person, and she's lovely, but she just doesn't understand how this is going to work. And, are we going to upset our customers, which is a really valid concern. But I think people are learning to do things differently now. They're embracing change. And I think the one positive, there's been some positives as well, but one of the key positives for me out of the pandemic has, and I've said this a couple of times, is it has persuaded us into positive progress, if that makes sense, in some respects of our business. It has highlighted the basic pieces, like the training, like the education, that's really, really fundamentally important, and it's the cornerstone of the industry. It has highlighted the value of people that you mightn't have noticed on a regular basis. It has highlighted that family is a massive priority now, and work-life balance. It can't all be hard and fast, serve it out, get it out, And look, we all worked in those industries worked in those settings and environments where it was hot and heavy, as I always say, in every sense of the word. But now the pandemic has brought us back to basics and, looking and reviewing our priorities. Would you agree with that, Cyril?
I think it has, yeah. Like as I said, I think it's focused people back into what's important in their lives, right? You talk about work-life balance, and that is so important. And I think that you can be a busy fool. You don't have to work. I think when I was leaving school, that there you worked 9 to 5, and that was it, and there was 4 hour a week and all that there. If you can get your work done in 28, 30 hours a week, do it. You don't have to be a slave to a computer or to your business. I know hospitality is a little bit different, but in my business, if we work smart, we can get things done quicker. And if you have the time off, go and do something for yourself, And I think that from the business, from the industry's point of view, they really need to embrace that sense of communicating the importance of well-being with the staff. Because, if staff, we came across a health program, so on our website, NSF, and it's very cost-effective healthcare for the industry, right? It's and it gives, what it does is it makes sure that if somebody's not well, they get the support they need to go to a doctor or a consultant, and therefore it won't impact really on the business, because if they're sick and don't want to go into work sick and spread the sickness around and all that, it's more damaging, right? This way they're more protected. It gives them a sense of value as well, because their business is paying this for them or contributing to it, And I think those sort of things need to be done with staff. Staff need to be, supported to well-being. Like Robert, you talked about yoga and that there. That's all important. And that's not airy fairy stuff. I think that's important for your own well-being, for your own mental health. This has been, as I said to you earlier on, one of the most challenging times of our history as a people. And I think I compare this to the world wars of our forefathers. This was our world war. This is where the world stopped. And we're all getting back together now. We're all beginning to take baby steps to recover. But we also have to be very, very conscious and cognizant of people's well-being and mental health. And if somebody is struggling, to be aware of it and to try to assist them, and not to condemn them or give out to them, to support them and say, yeah, it's okay to feel scared, it's okay to feel overwhelmed, it's okay to be nervous. How can we help you? And that's the most important thing, because I always say that when people I work with, I treat them the way I'd like my 2 daughters to be treated, and that's the rule I have. Because my 2 daughters are the most precious gifts I've ever had. And I love them to bits, and I wouldn't like anybody to take advantage or hurt them. And therefore, why should I do that to somebody else, a child? And I think if you have that ethos in your life, that's what it should be. Every person is a human being with feelings and emotions, and if somebody's son or daughter, so treat them with respect. You don't have to be a bully to get them to do something. And a kind word can make all the difference. And acknowledgement of what they do well is just as important as a paycheck, in my view.
Understand before being understood, Cyril. And sometimes, it's and again, look at our greatest asset is our people, and we would like, and again, the last 18 months have been challenging, but even prior to that, there's always going to be, people are always going to be struggling with other things. We can't expect people just to leave everything at the front door when they come into work. It just doesn't happen like that. We say, that you can try, but in principle it never happens. And as a group, we have again a dedicated counselling service for any of the staff members who are finding it difficult, and in confidence they can pick up the phone, they can talk to somebody, because again, we need these people to be at their sharpest, to be at their right frame of mind, and they need to feel like. And again, every staff member needs to feel like they are being valued and they are being supported by their employer. Because if not, we're never really going to get the true, value from this person. We're never going to get the true level of skills or expertise or competence that this person can deliver to us. And at the end of the day, the people that suffer is the employee themselves, because they never feel rewarded or challenged in their workplace or motivated, and the organisation, because they're never really going to get the asset that has so much potential to actually give to a company. So just treating the staff with the respect and with, and committing to them through training and development, and, try to heighten their, skill level, because again, with the skill will bring performance, and the performance will only aid to the organization's success. Irrespective if it's a hotel, a cafe, or a restaurant, it's all human based. And
it doesn't matter, whatever industry. And Robert, it's kind of, I think it goes back to a saying that I was told years ago, and I live and die by it. Respect is earned, it isn't given. And
my mother said that to me a few times.
Yeah, and my dad used to say something to me, Cyril, and he was a hard man, but he used to say, Mags, 2 things: the power of a good handshake, which we can't do now, and it costs nothing to be nice. You don't know what other people are going through. So I want to ask you one final question, ladies and gents, right? Because I'm just aware that time is precious with you all in your operational capacity as well. Lucy, I'll start with you, ladies first. What would you like to see happen to help the sector progress even further and bring more positivity into it? What would you particularly like to see happen?
I think actually Cyril said it earlier on. It's how we get out in the media that this is an attractive place to work. That sense of family. Look, there's not many industries that you can get that kind of community, that togetherness, that focus on wellness. Like, we are very small. There's a lot of very small properties who put massive amounts into their people. And we are very aware of it, but how to kind of get that out, get that word out about the positive place it is to be as a community, whether it be the skills that you have that we will develop and most will, but even kind of that coming together of businesses to get that word out. I think that is the most important, because look, we have a recruitment crisis. So to make a more positive view from the outside in, and there is a sense of, look, it's not a great place to work with the hours. And guys, we talked about it earlier on, about even like, if you look at it from a female perspective, there's a certain age where working at reception every night until 11 o'clock is just not doable. You want to put your child to bed at whatever time that time is. Or how do we make that more accessible for those employees, and getting, you know, that ability? Where is the childcare for hospitality, like, to make it more accessible? And it's such an amazing business to work in, because you have those people around you who will support you 100% to be who you want to be. And we are all very different, all very creative, you know, so it's to get the positivity behind the industry out there, the word out there. Yeah.
I agree with you on that, Lucy, 100%. Robert, what would you like to see happen?
I think as a collective, as an industry, we have to promote quality of life in terms of what people can get out of this industry. I'm not advocating for a second that we're looking at reducing full-time people to 4-day working weeks, as in their full week in 4 working days, to give them, 3 days off instead of the 2. But we are looking at ways of how we can kind of keep people within the industry, because retention to us is extremely important. And, at the end of the day, it's about making sure that we can keep these people. But in order for us to keep these people, we have to be progressive in terms of our ideas, in terms of philosophy for sustainability in the future. We need to be making sure that what we're doing now, safeguards the future. Because, again, this industry will be here in 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. I'm 100% certain of that. But it's what we do now, I suppose, to pay a dividend down the road is very important. So how I want the industry to kind of, promote itself, it needs to be promoted in a healthy work-life balance way. It needs to be promoted that it's a good place to work. It's a good place to develop your skills. It's a good place to get a profession, and it's a good place to kind of have a career. Again, a very, very unique industry, very progressive, very dynamic. You're never going to be stagnant in terms of not learning something. You're always going to be learning something every single week, every single month, every single year. And just the diversity of people that you will meet every single year, it's so, again, it warms the heart just meeting different people. And the gratitude that people as well give to you for a job well done, there's no better feeling in the world.
That's a fact. Yeah,
just really looking at the balance of life. And again, we talk with work-life balance, but the balance of life. How can we get people to stay in this industry? Well, we got to make sure that as an organization, we want people to feel like they are valued and they are appreciated for what they do. And, they can go home at night and they know that, they don't have to worry about that dreaded email coming in 7 o'clock in the evening, or that, dreaded, meeting that they have to do at 9 o'clock in the morning with somebody, that you don't necessarily, get on too well with. So it's just one of those things where we just have to keep on plugging away as a collective to make sure that we're coming up with new ideas. We're developing new initiatives to kind of, get people into the industry, but also retain the current people that we have.
Yeah, I know. And Robert, I think that's so important, that we need people to promote this industry in the right way and put a real face and personality to the real face of the business, as opposed to, as Cyril touched on the negative business, because that the stuff that happens, because negative stuff happens every day. Let's focus on the good news stories as well. There is a lot of good stuff. Cyril, last but certainly not least, what would you like to see happen for the industry?
I suppose two things. I think firstly, I'd like to, I think they should be recognised that there are 2 agencies out there that do great work as in tourism in Fáilte, Ireland. And, sometimes they get criticised, and it's easy to criticise. But I think they are working hard and working their best to support the sector. But, I really feel that the industry probably needs to be more vocal in addressing the issue of the negativity and challenge, to challenge the negativity out there. And if somebody is stepping out of line and bringing it into dispute, to challenge them, to pick up the phone and say, look, you're not doing us any favours with that sort of behaviour. It's as I say, it is a fantastic industry. I've met the most fascinating people, the most committed people, engaging people, right, who go over and beyond to ensure an event is well run and organised, right? You know, be it a bride or be it a birthday party, whatever it is, the attention to detail they go to is incredible. And it is a people industry. And the vast majority of people I have met in the industry love it. And I think that if you can just harness that as a group, like I talked earlier on, that the one thing that has come across to me in the last few months of meeting people is to talk about a sense of family. It is a tremendous family. And I think that, you know, it'll have its squabbles, it'll have its fallouts, but if they work together, they really can have a real voice, and they need to get their voice at the cabinet table and demand a Minister for Tourism, singularly a Minister for Tourism. And from that there, you'll build the other strands that you need to make the industry become more.
And I also think, Cyril, a minister who knows tourism as well, who understands the sector, you know,
Yeah.
Because there's no point having somebody in there that isn't familiar with it, you know.
No.
I suppose that could go for a lot of ministerial positions.
Well, I'll leave it this. I mean, I think the Canadians do it very good. The Canadians, when you get elected in Canada, they look at your skill sets, and whatever your skill set is, you're appointed to that department, and that makes sense. You know, whereas in Ireland, it seemed, as I said to you earlier on, it seems to be that the poor relation is tourism. Who's going to take tourism? The booby prize, you know, and it shouldn't be the booby prize. But, you know, as I say, it's a great industry, and I welcome the opportunity to share with the likes of Lucy and Robert and yourself, Mags, just my sense of it. But I love working in it. I love the people I've met in it, and I hope it long continues. And if I can support them in any way, I'd support them. My door is open. If I can support and promote them, it's there for them.
And I know you mean that with a heart and a half, Cyril, because you're very positive in that sense, and I think that's hugely valuable to people. Ladies and gents, I'm going to leave you with a couple of keywords to describe the sector as I see it. Resilient, strong, positive, fun, because I wouldn't have worked in it for as long as I did if it wasn't fun and a bit of crack. And I think you make friends for life. There's an element of, I have very good friends from that sector, and they're still friends of mine today. So I'm going to wish you all the very best. May the force be with you, and we'll talk soon. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks, Mags. Nice to meet you, Lucy. See you, sir.
Bye, Lucy.
Bye.